Hey guys, welcome to Dragon's Forge. In today's video, we're going to go over a new deck list for the new Zorga that was revealed for the new Festival Collection. But before we jump into the new deck list, we have to ask ourselves why we aren't using the old Zorga. The new Zorga comes with a lot of pros and cons that we have to take into consideration before we do move forward. The major pros are that you have access to any order that you want by discarding a card and getting rid of one soul. The big con is really just that you have to give up a card and give up a soul. So now we're more reliant on soul comparatively to the old Zorga. As well, there's one additional pro that we have to take into consideration that is a big improvement over the original Zorga, which is the extra 5k that we see anytime that we Alchemagic. So to kick things off, let's start with Dead Sea Spiritus Grave Zorga. With the ability of continuous on the Vanguard Circle, if you did Alchemagic this turn, all of your front row units get power plus 5,000. And then as well, active on the Vanguard Circle, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand to choose a normal order from your drop, put it into your hand, and until the end of the turn, when you would play a normal order, you can bind a normal order with a different card name from your drop and Alchemagic. So again, as previously stated, there's a lot of pros and cons with the new Zorga. We have that extra boost, which is really great for the deck, that allows for a lot more pressure, but then there's also the required cost to do Alchemagic of Soul Blasting a card and discarding a card. So there's overall a little bit more of a difficult threshold to get over. But the major advantage is every single card in your hand can be considered an order card as long as you have Soul. And we'll be running 4 copies of the new Zorga in the deck. Next up, we're going to run 1 Black Tears Husk Dragon in the Ride deck with the ability of when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, choose up to 1 normal order from your drop and put it into your hand. And then continuous on the Rearguard Circle, if you played an order this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000. As this is part of our ride line, it's still just a very good card, and occasionally it comes in help if you need another beater in the game. As well, don't forget, a really nice thing about Black Tears Husk Dragon is you can discard an order card and then add it straight back to your hand when you're riding up. Next up, we have Rancor Chain with active on the Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, we can Soul Blast 1 to draw 2 cards, and then we get to choose up to 1 order card from our hand and discard it. If we don't, we discard 2. And then continuous on the Rearguard Circle, if you played an order this turn, this unit gets power plus 2,000. In the early game, Rancor Chain gives us a huge amount of advantage by drawing those 2 cards, and then as well in the later game, he can be a decent booster if we don't have other better boosters available. And we're running 1 in the Ride deck. Next up, for our final card in the Ride deck, we have Dream Nibbling, which has the standard starting Vanguard ability of when this unit is rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. The big advantage of our Ride line is that if we're going second, we get a huge amount of advantage by drawing 3 cards during that turn, putting us way ahead of our opponent. Now, outside of our ride line, we start with Roaming Prison Dragon, which is one of our most important cards in the deck overall. With the ability of auto from the drop, when you play a normal order, you may call this card to Rearguard Circle. If you called this card, perform one of the following. If it was Alchemagic, perform all of the following instead. This unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn, or this unit gets critical plus 1 until the end of the turn. The important thing to remember about Roaming Prison Dragon is its base power is 5,000. So with the extra 10,000, it's at 15,000. The other nice thing about Roaming Prison Dragon is he can superior call himself from drop very early if you happen to be running any lower order cards than grade 3. And with how important he is to the deck, we're going to be running 4. Next up, we have Clouded Miasma, which is the new order card from the Festival Collection with the ability of, for 1 counterblast, you choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop and call it to Rearguard Circle. If this is part of Alchemagic, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets continuous on the Vanguard Circle. All of your front row units get power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. In my testing, this card has been a huge help, and with this, I'm going to run 3. Next, we have Cursed Soul Squirming in Agony. For the cost of Soul Blast 2, we get to look at 4 cards from the top of our deck and choose up to 1 unit card from among them and call it to Rearguard Circle, and discard the rest. If during the Alchemagic, call up to 2 cards instead of 1 to the Rearguard Circle, and all of the units called by this effect get an additional 5,000 power. You may ask, why run this card with such a high Soul Blast cost with the new Zorga? But overall, I found that you really need this extra self-mill and power boost to make the deck work effectively, and I've addressed the extra soul requirements elsewhere in the deck. and we're going to run another 3 copies of this. Next up, we have Shadow Cloak with the ability of when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, you search your deck for up to 1 order card and reveal it. And if your drop does not have a card with the same card name as that card, discard the revealed card, shuffle your deck. And then as well, auto on the rearguard circle, when you play an order, you can Soul Blast 1 and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. If it was Alchemagic, choose one of your other rearguards and you may return it to your hand. The main reason why you're running Shadow Cloak is for the search ability, but at the same time, the bouncing ability is really nice to have when you need it. It gives you a little bit of flexibility that allows you to get extra guard back into your hand or to use other enter the battlefield abilities. I'm going to run 3 in this deck. Next up, we have Inheritance Maiden Hendrina. With the ability of when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you may discard 3 cards from the top of your deck. And then as well, active on the rearguard circle, you can retire this unit, and until the end of the turn, the next time you would Alchemagic in order and play it, you may choose not to pay all of that card's Soul Blast. So Hendrina is really good for our deck with that self-mill, and then as well for that secondary effect of saving a Soul Blast. It allows Cursed Soul Squirming in Agony to really work well and become a free card. Next up, we have Clipping Dragon of Soul Revolution. With the ability of auto on the rearguard circle, at the end of your turn, if you Alchemagic an order and played it or attacked a total of 5 or more times this turn, you can put this card into Soul and countercharge 1. Now, of course, we're not going to be attacking 5 times in a turn, so we're going to be getting it off of that Alchemagic proc. And I have found that this card has allowed me to maintain resources immensely well. In my testing, there were moments where I would have 0 soul, and then at the end of the turn, I would end up with 1 to 3 cards in soul by using Clipping Dragon of Soul Revolution and another card that we'll be discussing later. And then as well, I hardly ever had more than 2 cards counterblasted at any given time with this help. So we're going to run 3 of this guy. Next up, we have Tearful Malice. With the cost of retiring 2 of our rearguards, we get to draw a card and put this card into our soul and countercharge 1. The things to remember is there's a few rulings that we can take advantage of with this card. First up, we have Roaming Prison Dragon. If we happen to have 2 Roaming Prison Dragons on the field, we can sacrifice both of them for the cost, and then they both can come back off of the activation of this card. The reason for this ruling is at the point of paying the cost, the card has not activated yet. So by the point that they're in the drop zone, they are there to see the activation of the card. The other ruling we have to take into account is when this card is the card that is in the drop, when we Alchemagic, the card that actually goes into Soul is the card from hand. Overall, Tearful Malice is a really good way for us to recycle our Roaming Prison Dragons, so we're going to run 2 of it. Next, we have Rogue Headhunter with the ability of continuous on the rearguard circle. If you played an order this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000. Then as well, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, the next time you would Alchemagic an order and play it this turn, reduce that cost by counterblast 1. Rogue Headhunter is our best booster in the deck with the ability to be at 13,000 very easily. Then as well, with the secondary ability of reducing the counterblast, he can make some of our orders free to play. So for example, if we use Miasma and Cursed Souls together in Alchemagic with Rogue Headhunter being placed that turn, and then as well sacrificing Hendrina, we can play the 2 cards for free. So we're going to run 2 copies of Rogue Headhunter. Next up, we have our Perfect Guard Planar Prevent Dragon. We're going to run 4 copies per the standard. Next up for our trigger lineup, we have Source Dragon Deity of Blessings Bless Favor, with an additional effect that is effectively every other trigger all in one. So you get an extra critical, you get your front trigger, you get your draw, and you get your heal. Overall, Bless Favor is one of my favorite over triggers. And of course, we're only going to run 1. Next up, we have Aspiring Maiden Lana, with the ability of auto in the rearguard circle at the end of the battle that this unit boosted. You can put it into your soul and choose one of your units and it gets power plus 2,000 until the end of the turn. I'll be honest, that power boost is almost never relevant, but the ability to go into soul is a big deal. For that extra moment where you need that extra soul, Alana comes in clutch. As well, if you happen to use Cursed Soul Squirming in Agony and you happen to pull Alana's, it's not a waste to call her to the field, as you'll get a 9k booster that will end up in soul at the end of the attack. With how helpful she is for the deck, we're going to run 4 copies of her. Next up, we have our vanilla critical trigger. Staying on theme, I'm running Abyss Temptation at 4 copies. Next up, we have Frenzied Eris, which is our front trigger, with the ability of continuous on the Guardian Circle. If your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. This gives Frenzied Eris an overall 20,000 shield when your opponent's at grade 3. I chose to run Frenzied Eris over the new draw trigger specifically because with all of the self-mill that we're going to be doing and some of the extra draw we already have, we would definitely be in danger of decking out much faster if we ran those draw triggers. Plus, the extra shield that we get from Frenzied Eris comparative to the new draw trigger is definitely worth it. So we're going to run 3 copies of her. And then last up, we have Elegy Pixie, which is our heal trigger. We're going to run 4 of her. Now for a wrap up, here's the full deck list that we went over. Now at the end, we might ask ourselves, why are we choosing to run Grave Zorga still over the original Zorga? Because you might say, we're jumping through a lot of hoops to make him work, whereas the old Zorga, it was just simple enough to make the Alchemagic work by just playing the cards. The greatest advantage I found as I was playing the deck was, 1, every single card in your hand becomes an order, so it's less likely that you're going to brick in that regard. The other advantage I found was I was able to run fewer order cards comparatively. In my original Zorga deck, I was running 10 order cards, and now I'm able to run 8. Comparatively to some of the other deck lists I've seen, I see anywhere from 10 to 14 order cards being run, and I believe they can consistently run 8 to 10 cards with the help of the new Zorga. If you like the new deck list, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Until the next one, have a great day.